It was late, later than I should have been coming home. The old house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until you hear every little thing. The creak of the wooden stairs beneath my shoes, the faint hum of a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, the muted tick of the clock in the kitchen 2 rooms away. The hallway leading to my room was always narrow, but that night, it felt even tighter, as though the shadows had closed in on me. I was halfway down when I stopped. There they were, 4 figures waiting at the far end of the hall. My landlady stood nearest the wall, her arms relaxed at her sides, though her presence carried more weight than if she had barred the way outright. She was in her mid-40s, a graceful kind of beauty that didn't need effort to command attention. Even dressed simply in a pale house dress, she looked composed, steady, and somehow untouchable. Beside her was her daughter, younger, barely a year older than me. She leaned casually against the opposite wall, her hair falling over one shoulder, lips curled into a knowing little smile. The 2 friends flanked her, both in their 20s, full of youthful energy, their eyes bright with some unspoken amusement. Together, the 4 of them filled the hallway, their closeness leaving little space for me to pass. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was too tired, or maybe the dim light was playing tricks on me. But no, their eyes were all on me, waiting, curious, and they were smiling. I shifted my weight, the strap of my bag slipping against my shoulder. The hallway suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. My shoulder brushed the wooden paneling as I tried to edge forward, but none of them moved aside. The scent of perfume drifted faintly through the space, floral, layered, mixed with something warm, like the faint sweetness of shampoo. Clung in the still air, impossible to ignore. "Late night?" one of the friends asked, her voice light, teasing. I swallowed, my throat dry, though I tried to smile back. "Yeah, lost track of time." A soft laugh escaped the daughter's lips, echoing faintly off the walls. The sound wasn't unkind, but it carried something else. Playfulness, maybe even mischief. And then my landlady's eyes met mine. She didn't speak, not yet. She only studied me, her expression unreadable, but her gaze steady enough to make me forget the cramped space, the teasing voices, the faint perfume in the air. For that moment, it was just her eyes and the quiet, almost patient way she looked at me. The wooden floor creaked under my step as I inched closer. My chest felt tight, not from fear exactly, but from the strange electricity that hung in the air between us. I didn't know why they were waiting for me. I only knew one thing. The hallway I'd walked through 100 times before would never feel the same again. For a moment, no one said anything. The hallway was so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the old light bulb overhead, buzzing as though it too was nervous. My eyes shifted from the daughter's teasing grin to her friend's playful glances, and finally, inevitably, back to her, my landlady. She was still leaning near the wall, close enough that the pale yellow light caught the lines of her face. Not harsh lines, but gentle ones, the kind that speak more of wisdom than of age. She didn't move quickly, didn't raise her voice, and yet her presence settled everything around her. Then, she stepped forward. Just half a step, but in the narrowness of the hallway, it was enough to close the distance between us. Her hand lifted, not to touch me, but to graze the wall just by my shoulder. A casual gesture, perhaps, yet I felt it as though she had reached straight for me. "Where have you been?" she asked softly. Her tone wasn't sharp. It wasn't the scolding voice of a landlady upset about rent, or a parent catching a child sneaking in late. It was gentler, quieter, but it carried something heavier beneath it. Concern, curiosity, something I couldn't name. I tried to steady my voice. "Just out. Lost track of time." The daughter chuckled under her breath. One of her friends nudged the other and whispered something that made them both laugh. Their voices echoed lightly down the hallway, bouncing off the wooden walls. But then my landlady glanced over her shoulder at them. Only a glance, and they fell quiet almost immediately. That silence left me with her. Just her. I realized how close she was then. Close enough that I could see the faint shimmer of the lamplight reflected in her eyes. Close enough that I could catch the warmth of her breath. Steady. Even. My back almost pressed against the wall. But I didn't move. Couldn't. Her gaze stayed on me, not harsh, but searching. Like she was waiting for something I hadn't yet said. Like she could see more than I wanted to reveal. I shifted, clearing my throat, but the words caught somewhere in my chest. Her presence, calm, unhurried, certain, made it impossible to lie, but terrifying to tell the truth. Finally, she smiled. It wasn't wide, not playful like her daughters, not sharp like her friends. It was a small, steady smile, one that reached her eyes, softening them, and yet left me more unsettled than any teasing could have. In that moment, I felt both seen and cornered, not trapped in a cruel way, but caught in something I didn't yet understand. The hallway seemed to shrink again, the light flickering above us as though it couldn't quite keep up with the weight of the moment. And as her hand lingered against the wall by my shoulder, I realized something that made my chest tighten. It wasn't the daughter's teasing that left me breathless. It was her. The silence didn't last. The stillness that my landlady had created with a single glance quickly unraveled the moment her daughter shifted her weight off the wall and stepped closer to me. She tilted her head, strands of hair falling across her cheek, and her smile widened with mischief. "So that's where you were," she said, her voice carrying the kind of teasing confidence only someone her age could pull off. "Sneaking in after midnight like some secret agent." I tried to smile, though my voice came out uneven. "I wasn't sneaking." Before I could explain, one of her friends slipped in front of me, standing just close enough to block the hallway completely. Her shoulder brushed mine as she leaned casually against the opposite wall, narrowing her eyes in mock suspicion. She hummed. "He looks guilty to me." The other friend laughed, stepping closer too, her laughter soft but sharp in the still air. "Definitely guilty. Look at the way he can't even meet our eyes." I did meet their eyes briefly, though it only made things worse. The teasing was harmless, light-hearted, but the closeness of their bodies, the way the hallway left me no escape, made every small movement feel amplified. Their perfume mingled in the air, sweet, floral, dizzying. The floor groaned faintly beneath us as if the old house itself were listening. I shifted, my bag slipping against my shoulder again, but the daughter reached out quickly, her fingers brushing the fabric of my sleeve as if to stop me. "Hey, don't run away," she said with a playful grin. "We're just asking questions." Her touch was light, nothing more than fingertips, but it left my skin warm beneath the fabric. The two friends leaned closer, laughing softly between themselves, throwing in playful accusations. Late-night dates, secret adventures, all exaggerated in a way that made the moment feel both ridiculous and strangely suffocating. Their voices overlapped, filling the narrow hallway with sound and energy. But over it all, I was aware of her, my landlady. She hadn't moved since stepping closer to me. She stood slightly behind her daughter, her eyes still steady, her hand still resting against the wall near my shoulder. She wasn't teasing, wasn't laughing. She was simply watching. That difference unsettled me more than the laughter. The daughter tugged lightly on my arm again, her laughter spilling out as if daring me to admit something I hadn't done. Her friends echoed her, their smiles bright, their energy pressing me in on all sides. And yet, even as I tried to laugh along, even as I felt the warmth of their closeness, my eyes kept drifting back to her, to the calm, unreadable expression on her face, to the way she didn't need to speak or tease to hold my attention. The others filled the hallway with noise and laughter, but she filled it with silence, and somehow that silence spoke louder than anything else. The laughter bounced off the wooden walls, light and playful. Yet underneath it all I felt a strange heaviness. Their teasing words overlapped, Their hands brushed too close. Their perfume clung thick in the air. It was dizzying, almost too much. And then, everything slowed. It happened the moment she moved, my landlady. Her hand slipped gently from the wall and found my wrist. Not forceful, not even firm. Just a light touch, steady and deliberate. Her fingers wrapping loosely around me as if to remind me I was still standing there. Still real, still steady. "Girls," she said softly. Just one word, but it cut through their laughter like a bell. The daughter froze mid-sentence, her hand still caught against my sleeve. One friend, who had been leaning in with another playful accusation, pulled back almost instantly. The other straightened, her smile faltering. The hallway, moments before filled with teasing voices, fell into a silence so sudden that I could hear my own breath. Her thumb brushed once, unconsciously, against the inside of my wrist. It wasn't a caress, not exactly. More like the way you might steady someone crossing a narrow bridge. And yet, the warmth of her skin lingered, quiet and grounding, drawing me out of the haze of perfume and laughter. The daughter shifted uncomfortably, her playfulness dimmed, though her eyes still flickered with something unreadable as she glanced from me to her mother. The two friends exchanged a look, uneasy now, their laughter reduced to nervous smiles. But my landlady, she didn't look uneasy. She looked calm, entirely calm. Her eyes met mine, and though her lips curved faintly at the corners, her gaze was deep, searching. There was no teasing in it, no light-hearted joke, just quiet weight. As though she wanted me to know she saw through the moment, and perhaps through me too. The narrow hallway no longer felt crowded with playful energy. Instead, it felt suspended, like a space caught between two worlds. On one side, the daughter and her friends, bright, teasing, restless, still uncertain of their own power. On the other side, her, mature, steady, quietly in control, her presence commanding without ever needing to raise her voice. I realized then that the laughter had never really unsettled me. It had been easy enough to brush aside, to play along with. But her touch, her quiet, grounding touch, left me unable to hide the way my chest tightened. She let go slowly, her fingers trailing just enough for me to feel the loss of warmth. Then, with a soft smile meant more for her daughter than for me, she said, "Don't overwhelm him." The words were gentle but final. And just like that, the teasing stopped. Yet even in that silence, even as the others pulled back, the echo of her hand on my wrist stayed with me. An invisible line dividing me from them, pulling me, without question, closer to her. The quiet after her words was heavier than any teasing could have been. It wasn't an awkward silence, not exactly. It was the kind that holds weight, like something delicate waiting to be spoken, or something dangerous about to break. Her daughter and the two friends had fallen back against the walls, subdued by the shift in her tone. They still watched, still lingered close, but their energy had drained away, leaving a strange stillness in the narrow hallway. And in that stillness, she looked at me. My landlady's eyes were steady, calm, and impossibly patient. There was no rush in them, no demand. Just a gaze that seemed to search through me, peeling away excuses I hadn't even voiced yet. I couldn't look away, though every second made me more aware of myself. My uneven breathing, the thud of my pulse, the warmth still lingering on my wrist where her fingers had been. I thought she might say something. Ask again where I'd been. Tell me to keep quiet at night or not to stay out so late. Something ordinary. But she didn't speak. She just stood there, close enough that I could see the soft glimmer of lamplight reflected in her eyes. Close enough that I could sense the calm steadiness of her breathing, the way her chest rose and fell in rhythm, grounding the silence between us. I opened my mouth to speak, to explain, to joke, to break the weight pressing down on me, but nothing came out. Words felt clumsy, too small for the moment. So I stayed quiet too, caught in the same fragile pause she seemed to hold me in. The hallway felt warmer than before, though maybe it was just me. The walls seemed to lean closer, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. My heartbeat was loud in my ears, almost embarrassing in its insistence. And then, so faintly I wondered if I imagined it, she exhaled. Just a soft breath, carrying the faintest hint of her perfume. Clean, floral, with something warmer beneath it. The breath touched my cheek in the still air, and the sensation made my skin prickle as though she had actually touched me. I glanced down, searching for escape, but all I saw was the space between us. Narrow, charged, impossible to cross without meaning something I wasn't ready to admit. For the first time that night, the daughter didn't laugh. Neither did her friends. They watched, yes, but even they seemed caught in the hush, as though they sensed there was something fragile unfolding here, something they couldn't interrupt. I wanted to speak then, to confess, not about where I'd been, but about the way she made me feel in that moment. The way her silence seemed more intimate than any question, more demanding than any words. But I stayed quiet, because to speak would have broken the spell. And somehow, that silence, shared, heavy and unbroken, felt like the closest confession either of us could give. The silence had held for so long that I almost thought no one would dare break it. The air was heavy with something fragile, something neither of us wanted to disturb. My landlady's gaze still lingered on me, steady, quiet, searching. I was lost in it, caught in the strange safety and danger of being seen so fully. But then, movement. Her daughter pushed herself off the wall with a sudden burst of energy, shattering the delicate stillness. She slipped between us in a way that felt both casual and calculated. Her laughter light and mischievous, as if to shake me free from whatever spell her mother had woven. "Well," she said brightly, looping her arm through mine, "if you won't tell her where you've been, maybe you'll tell me." The warmth of her arm surprised me. She leaned close, her shoulder pressing lightly against mine, her perfume sharper and more youthful than her mother's, carrying citrus and sweetness. It was playful, easy to read, almost childish in its boldness. Her friends laughed again, the sound of it bouncing back into the hallway like it had earlier, breaking the heavy silence. One of them clapped her hands together and teased, "See? He looks more comfortable already." I didn't feel comfortable. Not really. I tried to smile, to keep the mood light, but my chest still carried the weight of that quiet moment I'd just shared with her mother. It hadn't vanished. It lingered, just beneath the surface, making the daughter's sudden playfulness feel louder than it was. "Don't worry, Mom," she added, glancing over her shoulder with a grin. "We'll take care of him." The words were meant as a joke, but they hung oddly in the air. My eyes darted to her mother's face, searching for her reaction. Her expression hadn't changed much, but her gaze had deepened. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't amused. She simply watched, her calm presence pressing against the daughter's noisy energy like water against fire. The daughter squeezed my arm gently, maybe trying to pull me closer, maybe just to prove a point. "See? He doesn't mind," she said, her voice teasing, almost daring me to agree. But I did mind, at least not in the way she thought. The closeness, the touch, the teasing. It didn't unsettle me because of her. It unsettled me because of the shadow it cast against the silence I just shared with her mother. For the first time that night, I felt caught in two worlds. On one side, the brightness, the youth, the easy playfulness that asked nothing of me except to laugh along. On the other, the quiet gaze of a woman who hadn't needed words at all, who had asked me questions without speaking, who made me feel like my silence was already an answer. The daughter leaned her head briefly against my shoulder, laughing again as though she'd won something. Her friends joined in, their voices rising, filling the hallway with sound. But when I lifted my eyes, her mother's gaze was still there, steady, unshaken, watching. And suddenly, the daughter's boldness felt less like a victory, and more like a challenge neither of us had spoken aloud. The hallway was alive with noise again. The daughter laughed against my shoulder, Her friends chimed in with playful remarks, and for a moment it almost felt like the earlier tension had never existed. Almost. But beneath the chatter, my attention kept pulling toward her, my landlady. She hadn't moved much, hadn't raised her voice, yet she carried a presence that quieted me in a way no teasing ever could. Her calmness was striking against the younger women's playful energy. She stood just a step behind them, her gaze steady, her silence louder than all their laughter combined. Finally, she moved. She reached forward, her hand brushing lightly against her daughter's arm. The touch wasn't harsh, not a reprimand. It was gentle, a signal. The daughter looked up at her mother, her laughter dimming just slightly, though her arm still looped around mine. "Enough teasing," my landlady said softly. Her tone wasn't sharp, carried warmth, almost fondness, but also finality. The kind of voice that left no room for argument. The daughter hesitated, then slowly let go of me. Her friends exchanged glances, small smiles tugging at their lips, but even they stepped back, sensing the shift in the air. The hallway, once crowded with playful noise, seemed to exhale, the stillness returning like the calm after a storm. I started to move forward, relieved for the chance to slip past. My heart still beat fast, but now it wasn't from being cornered. It was from something I couldn't quite name, something that lingered between me and the woman who had just drawn the moment to its close. As I passed, she shifted slightly, enough to let me through. The movement was small but deliberate, like she had always been the one controlling the space, allowing me to go only when she chose. And then, as I stepped past her, her hand brushed my shoulder. It wasn't much, just the lightest touch, a glancing contact that could have been accidental. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. There was intention in it, a quiet reassurance, or maybe a reminder, that lingered even after I had moved forward. The warmth of her fingers spread across my shoulder long after her hand had fallen away. My steps slowed, almost faltering, as though part of me wanted to stop right there in the hallway. But I didn't. I kept walking, each creak of the floorboards beneath me loud in the silence that had settled behind. At my door, I paused. I didn't turn around, but I could hear them. The soft laughter of the daughter and her friends, now muffled, fading as though they were already moving away. And beneath it, I thought I caught the faintest sound. Her voice, low, calm, steady, saying something I couldn't quite make out. I stepped inside my room and closed the door gently behind me. The hallway outside was quiet again. But for me, it would never feel the same. Because in that narrow stretch of floorboards and flickering light, I had felt something shift. Something I couldn't explain, but something I knew wasn't over. Not by a long shot.